then that's easier to scale up. And you know that you
Yeah,
have that
yeah,
6-figure budget set aside, but let's just take a portion of it and work really fast, scrappy, and get the ideas proven first.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those are the
Agreed.
two scenarios I mostly work with.
Yeah, because you're right. It's not all about risk either. It's about being able to technically scale well, and it's just a better way of doing that. All right. Well, how's it going?
Good. How you doing? Just,
Right.
you know, starting a Monday.
Yeah, getting into it right away. So today our title topic is MVPs. Um, the working title I have right now is MVPs aren't about shipping fast; they're about learning fast. What are your thoughts on that?
I say that's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, you know my take on MVPs too. That I think we got
Hmm.
the term wrong for this era of tech, but ultimately that is what it's about. It is like validating fast. So whatever you have to do to get there, like I think it's a great title, even though it's a working
Hmm.
title. Is it
Sweet,
viral
perfect.
though? I don't know.
Probably,
Um,
hopefully.
yeah.
Um, yeah, cool. So let's jump into it. My name is Marcello, and with me is Simon. We are co-founders of a B2B website and product design company called Tennis. We do a lot of UX strategy and web work for all sorts of businesses, EC startups, medium enterprise, nonprofits, kind of everything you can think of. Today we're talking about MVPs. Yeah,
Yeah. So naturally, MVPs always come into the fold as an ask.
yeah,
Uh, but there's a lot of myths to dispel about it. So
yeah. We've talked about it a little bit before, but basically we're talking about what are there from our context, why people get the term wrong, or why the term itself is probably a little outdated now, and then how do we kind of use it within our process. So, Simon, why do you think the term MVP is misunderstood?
I think yeah, if you just take a step back in the history, like MVP, to the best of my knowledge, originated from the whole lean business methodology, like the lean business canvas, all that stuff. And the whole idea was go as lean as possible to validate the idea before you invest the time, the energy, the capital into the idea. So if you validate fast with like popsicle sticks and paper, then you're validating the idea or invalidating the idea before you have to upfront the cash or the time to actually get it built. So back from that era, it was this like minimum viable product, and it was very much that because things were just harder to build. But I think as things progressed, people started looking at an MVP as more of like a full or like partial product. So they would still invest like 4 to 8 months and 100 grand to like get something built. That's not an MVP. Like that's a full project. You're building the full thing at that point. It's not in the spirit of an MVP. So that's my issue with the term. It's just been co-opted lately and no one knows exactly what it is anymore. So that's why I think it needs a rebrand, a reframe, or whatever it is. Right.
Interesting. Yeah, I was curious about where it originated, and it actually started. The term was created in 2001 by someone named Frank Robinson before the Lean Startup, and it was
Before.
basically defined as the right-sized product for customers and company, balancing features, cost, and risk. Um, he interestingly mentioned that the big focus was on emphasizing learning for future development, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Which is still true to this day. That is the point. Learn what people
Mm,
want, learn what people need, but you have to learn through doing. It's not speculation with like, I have an idea. I know this is going to be a good idea, so I'm going to build the thing and market it. It's learn if the idea is good through testing with real people. And the
mm,
one thing I'm borrowing this again from the lean methodology, but I don't know if this original guy had the same idea. But in order to validate, it's your proof is if someone actually parts with $1, like a tangible asset for your product, for your MVP. So have they paid for it? I think it can go both ways if they've paid for it or if they've committed a certain level of effort to it. I think that
Hmm.
both of those could be classified as
Some
validation,
level
in
of
my opinion.
commitment. Some level
Yeah,
of commitment.
exactly.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Robinson's view is a functional, secure product with core features, not just an easy to build prototype used to guide scaling. So I guess a little bit more commitment to like building a product.
See, that's what no. I
Whereas
see that's
lean
where I
startup
disagree with.
is more about the minimum viable product often being an experiment. So like landing pages, mock-ups.
Okay, so the term originated from this other guy. Lean the lean
Yeah,
methodology
yeah,
gave us this like quick experimental approach,
yeah,
but
yeah.
really Robertson or Robinson?
Robinson was the
But
original.
Robinson is really like, nah, just build it.
Yeah,
So
but that was
so I guess
2001, so it's quite a while.
we have him to blame, I guess, for current state because we've retraced
Well, it's
like
interesting that I think people still associate. I mean, I guess that's what happens when like someone creates a methodology or framework, and then someone else just builds on it because I feel like people still associate the product development with lean startup, with their view on MVP, but actually they've kind of like um, lean startup is closer to what our view has been, which is like it doesn't have to be a product. It can be literally anything. It could be a spreadsheet, could be like a form, it could be like anything to start um, mimicking what it is that you're trying to do through like a full out product.
yeah, exactly. And I got a couple examples too. My favorite example, I think it is the greatest of all time example of an MVP, and that was Dropbox. They launched a demo video without a product and just a sign up form. And
Hmm.
they went from 5,000 beta signups to 75,000 like overnight from a video. Like that is in its purest form. People were captivated by a video and by like the idea and what they were selling. And they signed up because they're like, I want this. I need this. That's validation.
Hmm.
And there was no product.
Interesting.
Yeah. Airbnb as well. It was kind of the same idea. They're like, well, let's just do some apartments and throw a couple air mattresses in here during a conference kind of thing. And
Yeah, yeah,
I I actually don't give Airbnb as much cred as they often get because back in our day, pre Silicon Valley apps, we had couchsurfing.com, which is
yeah.
literally the
Still
same
around.
idea as Airbnb. Yeah. So I don't actually think that they innovated much. It was just they found a better way of marketing the product and then they just appified it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and first guys to go for funding probably too.
Probably. Yeah.
But they are often listed as an example of a great MVP,
I
of like the
know.
perfect MVP example.
They're not
Um,
perfect. Dropbox is perfect. I'll take
the
that.
Dropbox one is weird to me. Like, so when people signed up, there was no actual product. Like, is that even an MVP at that stage, or is that just marketing? Like, they were just marketing signups for a beta.
But like you got someone to commit their email to a product. They
But
wanted
you
to
haven't
become
validated
beta
anything because you
users.
haven't run anyone through a product.
But this is still
There is no
you don't have to
minimum
run them
viable.
through a product.
I guess so.
That's
I
my
mean,
point.
that just feels like it's a marketing success story versus an MVP.
An MVP though could be totally used as marketing. And some people do use your beta as marketing.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like,
Wait lists, beta signups, those are all just marketing tools, but it's still generating a list of prospective users. So yeah,
all right.
I still think it's yeah. I don't know. We got a bit off track too.
Okay, let's go on to the next section. So we talked about UX versus web design. In our UX versus web design episode, we talked about treating websites as products. How do you think MVP thinking um, changes when you treat something as a product instead of a one-off deliverable?
Yeah. I mean, it's like the same thing we've been talking about. There's a level of
Hmm.
continuity. Um, a project is just a one off, right? Like MVPs are just naturally a good fit for product thinking because there's this level of ship first before perfect. So ship the core features and then continue to improve it and launch new features. Listen to your audience through different feedback surfaces. And that's how you can validate new features. You can always roll out features for A B testing. It's the same with treating a website as a product.
Yeah.
Launch
Yeah.
something that addresses the core needs first and then start building on that, but never stop building.
Hmm.
Constantly reorient, reconfigure, deploy new things, test out in the wild. And that's just why an MVP is good because it's out there, it's living, it's collecting data, it's collecting users. Um, and that's really the best position to be in as long as it's not, you know, burning your runway.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of really great software out there to integrate too. Like, obviously, if you're taking that approach with a website, you need to, as an organization, you need to think about how to create workflows so that you can actually do this. And there's a lot of great software out there for testing and creating like iteration cycles and things like that. When would you recommend an MVP instead of a full scope?
Think, yeah, whenever you're not fully sure of the idea, whenever the idea is kind of half baked. Like a good example for I'm trying to think of some good examples without
I've got a
naming
couple.
names.
I've got a
Yeah.
couple. Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons. The first one you said was like whenever you're not fully sure of whatever the variables are in the project you're undertaking. I think like that is one one reason why you would do an MVP. The other one is just overall budget, of course. Like some organizations, if you're spending $200,000, it's a much higher risk than other organizations spending $200,000. So an easy way to kind of like ease into that and make sure that what you're doing is actually having an impact is to follow a bit of an MVP process. And then the last one is just, I think, from like the experience we've seen is just complexity. Like if something is, you're trying to tackle like a really big, complicated task that's kind of impossible to fully map out, um, you can approach it from just like an MVP perspective. Start with a smaller release and then start building on that as you kind of figure out all the variables. But to go from
Yeah,
in
those
all those
are
instances, I think like going straight to product is just a higher risk tolerance.
yeah.
Some
I think the
companies don't.
benefit of an
But
MVP too is you do get to a thing faster, right? That's been the reality of some of the clients who've
yeah,
come to us.
sure.
They have the idea, but they're like, we need this deployable in 3 weeks, and we only have X amount of
That's the other one.
budget.
Yeah.
So, like, we thrive in that because we're able to just go through, trim all the fat, make things really lean, focus on the core features. And that's part of the problem for us is we are on the consulting side, so we have to wrangle those founders and they're the visionary. They've got all these great ideas, but budgets and time are their fixed resources.
Hmm.
So making sure that as a founder starts to deviate from that path and like start going down like more visionary route, it's up to a team like ours to acknowledge and then backlog stuff like that for future phases. Because they might be great ideas, but if they are not addressing a core need of the product, then there's no real point in putting it in that initial release.
Yeah, it's totally true. And so that's another one we should add to the list. And then, sort of related or not related can be, cannot be. But if you need to show results to a board or like some level of like senior leadership faster, especially if it's like revenue related, then you obviously want to take like an MVP approach to start generating revenue faster. Otherwise, you may not be for like for too long.
Yeah. I think the reality these days is just people want to see things faster as well. There
Yeah,
is this reality where you'd have a deck for a product, but especially in the Canadian VC market, there's this expectation that you'll have the classic deck that's going to talk about your total addressable market and like all of that great stuff, competitive analysis. but they're also going to want to see some action taken on the thing, proof
Hmm.
of concept that it works, maybe some user validation. If you can have that, then as long as the idea is good and validated, then it's way better. You're in a much better position.
Yeah, makes sense. Those are some good. That's a good list of reasons why. Um,
Yeah.
I like the quote: "MVPs aren't shortcuts; they're seatbelts."
Yeah, guardrails, seat belts, yeah, anything to contain the chaos pretty much.
Hmm. All right, let's talk about what makes a good MVP strategy. Let's make a list here. What actually makes an MVP strategy effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a workshop for sure. You want to sit down, start thinking about what some of your riskiest assumptions are. Even just take a look out there in the market to see what other tools are out there, maybe even adjacent to the product or service that you're building, because that alone can help validate some of the ideas you might have.
Yeah, makes sense.
Get that down on paper. Like, what's the riskiest assumption and why is it risky? Is it risky
Hmm.
because you actually don't have an answer? Is it risky because it's complex to build? Figure out the type of risk associated to it as well. And that should be pretty easy to do. I know it's an assumption, but if you're doing something hard technically, you know why it's hard technically because no one else has done it. There's not enough research on it. You're using like brand new tools and technology that are relatively untested. Get that stuff down on paper. And then I think the next one, critical, what does success look like? And you have to ask this with any project, but it's really important to ask it for an MVP. Like, what is your core success metric? Is it gaining users? Is it the financial side, getting people to sign up via Stripe? When do you know that the experiment was actually successful before you
Hmm.
start designing anything? Because that helps you put together your MVP requirements. And then get comfortable with what you're willing to give up as well. People have this idea of a minimum lovable product versus a minimum viable product. This idea that a lovable product should be polished and complete and still highly usable. But if your scope for learning doesn't require that polish and you're able to shop it around internally to other businesses while it's scrappy and not polished, are you comfortable with that? Does that still hit the target? Is that still a viable plan? So get comfortable with what you're willing to give up along the way and understanding how polished it needs to be. Because unpolished is a different type of risk than a lack of polish. But you can get away with both depending on your audience and how you plan on selling it. Yeah, design it well enough to, I mean, hit those goals, right? And
Yeah, I mean, we said design it well enough to be believable, but I think it's just you can't release the message is basically you can't release something that's. I think it needs to look and feel like you're invested, basically.
hey,
Not
yeah,
financially, but like you're committed to the. What I mean by that is like you're committed to the whatever the idea or product is. You're committed to actually testing it in a as production ready of a test as possible.
there's different angles to that though. Like a bit of yes, a bit of no. Um, design it well enough. Like these days, you can use these UI kits and libraries. Like ShadCN is one of the core libraries that we use, and it's an amazing tool for getting interfaces out of the gate really quickly because it's got so many different common design patterns just baked in.
Hmm.
So that makes something pretty believable out of the gate. But then I think of a recent product we did where ShadCN maybe covered like 30% of the tool. And that 30% wasn't even the core idea that they were validating. There was no UI for the idea. So we had to go out and find alternative libraries for this visualization. It was a product in the big data space. And the challenge with that is like you're selling to B2B and they know their problems intimately, and you can't actually get past the polish here because you can just sell them on this works. We're going to enter in this data. We're going to connect these integrations and you're going to see exactly what you would expect. But yes, you do need to use your imagination. And it was more like shopped around, like door to door, booking with teams, talking about the vision. That alone, I think, is a good enough MVP. It's like
Hmm.
believable because it functions. It is not polished though. And
Yeah,
that's
I
where I
guess it
think there's a
depends
big
on
distinction.
the brand segment, the customer
The
base, all of it.
audience,
Yeah,
I
totally.
think you can get away with more in the B2B space to have things a little leaner and rougher around the edges than the consumer space. I think consumers will cast judgment much quicker. But I mean,
Depends.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna retract that a little
yeah.
bit.
It
But
really just
like,
depends.
yeah, it depends on how you're selling it. If you're selling face to face, it's different than putting it out there into the void. And I think at that point, it does need to look a little bit more polished. But let me ask you, if it's being put out there to be sold as a product, is it still an MVP?
Yes,
Okay.
in my opinion. Yeah, because like if you're, I mean, first of all, like you said earlier, you need to be getting some level of commitment from customers to get the feedback that it's actually worth it. So, uh, putting something out there to be paid and bought for, I think is a point of validation. And I think there's just so many different ways you can do that. Like, it doesn't have to be like we've talked about before. It doesn't have to be a full fleshed out web application or product or whatever. It can be a service or like, however you action things in the back end, um, is how you action them at the MVP level. You might be scrapping things together, but from an audience and client perspective, I think like, if someone's paying for something, in my opinion, you need to be presenting something that's at least a little bit, I don't know, like I said, showing a little bit of commitment from a look and feel perspective.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I
Um,
think there's different boundaries depending on the audience and
totally,
the approach you've got.
totally, totally. And like if
But
you're
that
doing it
reminds me,
internally and you're a huge organization or you're doing it with partners or vendors or whatever, you can potentially present it. You can have something that's really low-fi, but like I guess it also just depends on the business itself and the people that are in senior leadership in brand, marketing, and those kinds of roles, whether they would even approve something going out to potential clients that isn't a good representation of the brand, right?
yeah, totally. That reminds me,
Personally, I wouldn't want to do that.
yeah, yeah.
It
I mean,
depends.
go through the steps, right?
Yeah.
It reminds me of the presentation I did for that Be Uninterrupted thing. We talked about like shipping fast and lean,
Hmm.
and I brought up the Wizard of Oz concept,
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
and like as long as the experience on the surface is, uh, you know, you can use it, it feels relatively friction free.
Totally.
You can be Wizard of Ozing stuff in the background, and oftentimes that is tools like N8N, um, that workflow system and tooling for defining workflows with like a node based interface. That's great. You can you can get pretty far with that. Um,
Yeah. That's
even
exactly what
lovable stuff,
my
right?
sentiment on that. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I mean, that's why those tools are so useful because it's like you can now do that faster and more easily than in the past.
Yeah. And Claude
It's
Code, I haven't tried it yet, but it's like I've heard a lot of
Yeah, same. I've been hearing
crazy
a
things.
lot lately. Yeah. All right. Well,
So
we've talked about what MVPs are from our perspective, why they're misunderstood, how it connects to UX, web, product thinking. What's one hard truth teams need to hear about MVPs?
I got so many.
Give me
It's
your
not an
number
MVP.
one.
I mean, honestly, like maybe we cut this one, but if it costs you $100,000, it's not an MVP, in my opinion.
But I think that's all relative. Like if your budget is $1 million and 100,000 might be an MVP.
Yeah, it's
Your
not lean
budget's
enough.
Yeah, that's true. But if your
It's
budget
just
is a
not.
million dollars,
Then you're
it's a
building a
small it's a
product.
small investment.
No, you're building a product at that
Yeah,
point. A
it's true.
million
It's
dollars
true.
can build a product.
Yeah, it's true.
This is meant to be an experiment. No one like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
walks into the office and they're like, I'm going to experiment today and just drop 100K on this experiment. Like, where's the ROI? Like, that's my problem is an MVP is people are building products now and they cost so much needlessly. Remember that estimate that we saw um like ages ago? Someone wanted us to do, we were pitching on a product and we got to see an estimate from like another firm and the estimate for it was like 250K. And the scope of work was full blown. You will have a final marketable product with a product website. They were building the startup from the ground up. That is
Mhm.
not an MVP. They were just trying to validate 3 ideas and the budget was
Yeah.
250,000, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's why I'm not sure like we should keep it because I don't want to get into pricing
No, I think this is
because
it's important. It's a important variable in the decision, and I think like for some firms, I mean, if you are pitching a product idea to a VC firm and they give you $2 million based on a deck, you're going to build the product, right? Like,
yeah,
so there's
yeah, you're gonna
scenarios
build it.
where like the MVP doesn't matter. Like, I mean, my my opinion is that it does matter, and like there's a way that you could sort of like iteratively get to the final product. It's going to give you more success, but there are examples out there where companies are just like, I don't. I don't either don't need to or don't want to validate it. I've got this funding and this money that has to be spent, and we're going to just burn as hot as possible. And if it all comes falling, crumbling down in 2 years, we'll get new jobs. Like,
Yeah,
or those scenarios where there's companies that have like budget that has to be spent. Um, there's all the cultural variables in this as well, right? Like companies have $200,000, 300 more. I've heard insane stories about organizations with too much budget left over and they just need to burn an insane amount of money in order to keep the budget for the next year. And it's like in those situations, they want to, they might just be wanting to go with the afterburners on, just straight to market with some
yeah,
$200,000 product. So there's a lot
it
of,
is. It's true.
obviously we would never recommend that. Like we would never go into a scenario being like, oh, you should spend $250,000 for this product that like is no one really knows what exactly it is yet, even, which I think is like a key part of what our advice always is. But
Yeah,
in some instances, companies are just like, we got to burn the money.
true. But I think my problem with it is it's just a labeling thing. Like at the 6-figure target, you do have enough to likely build the like a first iteration of the
Yeah,
thing,
for sure.
right? And I am definitely
Maybe
wrong
even
on
the final one, depending on how big
true,
depending on what they're trying to do.
true. But I think like, and we've walked clients back from this where they say their budget is 6 figures and they want to do an MVP, and we're like, that's a full product. Like let's get aligned on what we're actually delivering here.
Yeah,
We've also had
yeah,
the alternative where
yeah. That's a good point
someone
too,
has a
actually.
six. Yeah, we've had the alternative where someone has the 6 figures, but it's a really complicated problem. So we go back to them and say, well, let's do a proof of concept first, get you comfortable with the idea and the logistics and all of the tooling required. Because if we figure out the proof of concept and validate the technical constraints, the usability constraints, then that's easier to scale up. And you know that you
Yeah,
have that
yeah,
6-figure budget set aside, but let's just take a portion of it and work really fast, scrappy, and get the ideas proven first.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those are the
Agreed.
2 scenarios I mostly work with.
Yeah, because you're right. It's not all about risk either. It's about being able to technically scale well, and it's just a better way of doing that.
So
Really good. Oh, so what's your hard truth?
I
If it's
guess it
100K,
was,
if it's 100K, it's not an MVP.
yeah, it was, if it's 6 figures, it's not an MVP.
Okay, I love that. Love that. That
Is
should
it
be the
good? Is
title,
it good? I
actually.
don't know.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
title. Got it.
I don't
I'm
know.
changing.
I'm still
I'm
on the fence
changing the
about it.
working titles. If it's 6 figures, it's not an MVP.
I mean, that is good. That is catchy. But
It's not an MVP. Done. All right. Yeah. So that's it. This is exactly what we do at tennis. So if you want to reach out and unpack any of this stuff further, like please let us know. And subscribe if you want to hear more of this kind of content. Thank you
awesome.
so much.
Thank you. See you, dude.
Hey, bye.
Bye.